The Great Forest Talent Show. In the heart of Mistywood Forest, where the trees stood tall and the rivers whispered secrets, a grand announcement rang out one crisp sunny morning. The usually quiet owl judge, Ollie, perched on the oldest tree, fluffed up his feathers and called for attention. Creatures of Mistywood, hear me. Tonight, we gather under the big willow for the first ever Great Forest Talent Show. Everyone is welcome, and every talent is treasured. The forest burst into a flurry of excitement. All the animals began chattering about what they'd perform, and the news spread like wildfire. Some creatures quickly got to practicing, while others formed little groups to brainstorm, and still others simply scratched their heads in wonder, unsure of what they could bring to the stage. Samantha Squirrel, famous for her quick jumps and boundless energy, immediately gathered her squirrel family. They chattered in excitement, planning a routine of acrobatic flips and daring leaps across the high branches. "Just wait," Samantha said proudly. "We'll spin and somersault so fast, they'll be dizzy just watching." Not far away, the local bird choir, a diverse gathering of robins, sparrows, and a few bluebirds, began practicing. Their leader, Melody, a soft-spoken robin with a voice like silver, directed them with delicate wing movements. The choir harmonized with beautiful melodies that drifted through the trees, catching the ears of every creature who passed by. Even grumpy old Mr. Badger was getting involved. Though he was known for his serious and reserved nature, Mr. Badger had a secret love for rhythm. In the privacy of his burrow, he often practiced little tap dance steps with his big paws, but he'd never dared to show anyone. After much convincing from his friend Barney the Beaver, Mr. Badger finally agreed to put on his dancing shoes for the talent show, though he worried about how silly he might look. Then there was Sneaky Stanley the Fox. Known for his clever tricks and sly smile, Stanley was not one to shy away from attention. He rarely participated in group activities, preferring to stick to his own mischievous plans, but the thought of outshining every creature in the forest was simply too tempting to pass up. Stanley hatched a secret plan, one that would guarantee him the spotlight and a roar of applause from the crowd. He spent the day preparing, practicing his routine in secret, chuckling to himself. "Just wait till they see this," he whispered with a grin. As evening fell, the animals gathered under the majestic big willow. It was a magnificent scene. Fireflies floated above the crowd like twinkling stars, and the forest seemed to glow with excitement. Ollie the owl fluffed his feathers once more, standing tall as he announced the start of the talent show. First up were Samantha Squirrel and her family. They leaped, flipped and spun, darting between branches with astonishing speed. The crowd gasped as they formed a pyramid on the highest branch, finishing with a final tumble down into a pile of leaves. Every creature cheered, and Samantha waved to the audience, her bushy tail flicking proudly. Next, the bird choir took the stage. Led by Melody, they performed a song so lovely that it felt like the night itself had paused to listen. The harmony of their voices blended into a symphony that brought tears to even the grumpiest animal's eyes. When they finished, the forest resounded with cheers and chirps of approval. Then, to everyone's surprise, Mr. Badger stepped forward, his paws nervously tapping the ground. But once he started, his paws seemed to find a life of their own. He performed a clumsy yet charming tap dance, stomping his big feet to an energetic rhythm. His friends clapped and laughed along, and even the usually serious Ollie chuckled. Mr. Badger ended his performance with a flourish, blushing as he took a bow to a chorus of applause. Finally, it was Sneaky Stanley's turn. The fox sauntered onto the stage with a confident grin, a sparkle in his eye. Reaching into his coat, he pulled out a small deck of cards. "Ladies and gentlemen of Mistywood," he announced with flair. "Prepare to witness a magical talent that no creature here has ever seen." The crowd leaned in curious. Stanley scanned the audience and pointed to a plump little rabbit in the front row. "You dear rabbit, I can guess your favorite food," he declared. The rabbit blinked in surprise. "You can?" he asked, ears twitching. "Why, of course," Stanley said, raising a card dramatically. "You love carrots." The rabbit's eyes widened, and he nodded enthusiastically. "How did you know?" Stanley simply tapped his nose knowingly and winked. Next, he pointed to a shy raccoon who was hiding behind a tree. "And you, my stripy friend, have a weakness for juicy berries." The raccoon squeaked in amazement and nodded, impressed. Stanley was really starting to draw the crowd in, with every animal watching closely, whispering to each other, "How does he do it?" Finally, Stanley turned to Mr. Badger, who was still slightly out of breath from his dance. With a dramatic pause, Stanley raised a final card and said, "And you, sir, are a fan of mushrooms?" Mr. Badger's jaw dropped. "Well, I do love mushrooms," he stammered, completely taken aback. The crowd erupted in laughter and applause. They were delighted by Stanley's clever trick, even though a few animals began to suspect he might simply know everyone's tastes by watching them closely over the years. Still, no one could deny that he had put on a show. But as Stanley was taking a bow, a little voice from the back piped up, Wait, I have a favorite food too." It was Pip, a tiny mouse with a big personality. She scurried up to the stage, looking up at Stanley with bright eyes. "Can you guess my favorite food, Mr. Stanley?" Stanley hesitated. Pip was a new resident of the forest, and he hadn't observed her as closely as the others. Cheese," he guessed, hoping for the best. Pip giggled and shook her head. "Nope, it's sunflower seeds." The audience burst into laughter, and Stanley, for the first time that night, looked a little flustered. But he quickly laughed along with the rest, shrugging with a grin. "Ah, you got me, Pip," he said. "A true magician is always open to surprises." The night ended in a joyous celebration, with everyone sharing snacks and stories around a big fire beneath the stars. Stanley may not have guessed everyone's favorite food, but he had still won their hearts, and from that day on, he was known not just as Sneaky Stanley, but as the beloved trickster of Mistwood Forest.